Hey, how's it going? YouTube? I'm back in the video, and today I'm going to talk about the potential of James Harden being traded to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this probably won't happen, and this is not me saying it is going to happen. I'm just getting into a scenario where the Houston Rockets feel that they do need to trade James Harden, and I will be saying why I think Philadelphia is one of the best, if not the best landing spot for the Houston Rockets and to trade Jimmy Butler too. So I'm beginning to the actual trade package and why it would benefit both teams to make this trade. So I'm beginning to all in the video. If you do like the video at any point, hit the like button and subscribe button. I mean the absolute world to me. And without further ado, without rambling on too much, let's get right into this video. Alright, so the trade package itself is going to be that the Philadelphia 76ers would be getting James Harden and Eric Gordon, while the Houston Rockets would be getting Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson, Zaire Smith, a 2021 first round pick, a 2023 first round pick, and a 2020 Atlanta second round pick. So yeah, now y'all might not love the trade, but I personally think this is a very fair trade for both teams, and here is why. The Philadelphia 76ers, I think they would want to do this a lot because, I mean, Philly gets an amazing scorer in James Harden. Obviously, we all know how great he is on offense. And, I mean, what's the biggest problem with the Philadelphia 76ers? They don't have enough shooters, and the floor is not spaced out enough. And, well, James Harden would be pretty damn good at spacing out the floor. For a team that relies so heavily on having to attack the paint, if you can get someone like James Harden on your roster, I mean, that is going to help them tremendously. As I mean, James Harden is going to be able to stretch out any defense no matter what, because if you don't respect James Harden, I mean, he's going to literally beat you. He's one of those players in the NBA that can legitimately single-handedly take over a game and beat you. And then you compare that with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, who both are extremely good defensive players to help pick up the lack of defense that James Harden plays. And I mean, that's just going to be an overall very beneficial relationship between all the players. As like I said, James Harden's going to be able to expand the floor, which will be giving Embiid and Ben Simmons a more open paint and more open lane to work with. But also, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are both extremely good defenders, and that will be able to complement or at least help the lack of the defensive game in James Harden's game. So, I mean, it's kind of like a yin-yang thing. Ben Simmons can't shoot for shit, but, you know, James Harden is a pretty good shooter, if you didn't know. And James Harden, you know, he would rather play offense than defense most of the time. And, well, Ben Simmons just so happens to be one of the best defensive point guards in the NBA. So they just really help each other out a lot. And I think they would be a very, very good, beneficial relationship between all three of the players. And they would work very, very good together. And then Eric Gordon also isn't just someone to throw in this trade. I mean, Eric Gordon would legitimately help this roster, as he would add much needed bench depth to this team, as they're pretty top heavy. I mean, Al Horford was supposed to be that good guy off the bench, but he just fell off a cliff, or he just doesn't do good in the system or something. Al Horford just had a very bad year. So Eric Gordon could really legitimately be another scoring option off your bench and be a very good shooter who, if he is hot, can also help you win a lot of games. And it has playoff experience and would just help this team go into the playoffs and maybe even make a playoff run going into the future. And I think, without being said, this trade would make you an instant contender. So Philly would do this for multiple reasons. They would be getting, their system would work, they would get the perfect player alongside Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and they would become an instant contender. You can't ask for much more than that. And now for the Houston Rockets side of things and why they would actually do the trade, because I know a lot of you are probably looking at me and be like, why the hell would James Harden ever get traded from the Rockets? He's a top 5 player in the NBA, definitely probably the second best scorer in the NBA from the guard position. So when you take all that into account, why would the Houston Rockets trade him? Well, I think they would trade him because, let's be honest, with this roster they have constructed right now, one, they stand literally no chance of improvement. They're the oldest roster in the NBA, so development-wise, they almost have no room for improvement. Their cap situation is terrible, and no one is trading for Russell fucking Westbrook after what just happened. So your only option to improve or to even attempt to get better is by trading James Harden and just rebuilding your roster. And I think that's what they're going to be doing with this trade, but I also think they're going to be able to stay competitive at the same time with this trade, as the Rockets would be getting a borderline all-star in Tobias Harris. And now you might not have been able to see that in how he played in the playoffs, as he underperformed greatly, but still Tobias Harris is a all-star level player, and he can play like that at times. And I do think Tobias Harris is a more slept-on player in the NBA. Josh Richardson is a great 3-and-D type player. I mean, he's very good on defense, and he can also score when he wants to as well. So, I mean, you'd be getting two very, very, very solid players to replace what you're losing. And although you obviously are getting worse because you're losing James Harden, and no matter who you bring in, unless you bring in another top 5 player, you're not getting what James Harden gives you. You're not going to be able to replace that with just 2 players. But I do think that they will go a long way with helping this team's future, and it would definitely help them be more flexible going into the future as well, just because that's how it would work. And then Zaire Smith, although has not had the best career up to this point, was a lottery pick, still has potential to develop, and no telling what he can turn into if he does get enough time to develop. And yeah, and he just has a lot of potential. He's a young guy. I'm sure Houston would like to have him on his team, and maybe one day he can become a rotational player. But the biggest thing in this trade, in my opinion, is that they recoup some of the picks that they lost in that Russell Westbrook trade. Because let's be honest, they lost that Russell Westbrook trade. They traded Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook and I think like 4 first rounders, or maybe even more than that. So, I mean, not only did they probably trade the better player, but they also gave up their entire future in doing so, and they kind of pulled a mini Brooklyn Nets. Now, obviously not as bad or not to the extent, because the Brooklyn Nets didn't have the Saipan rule where you couldn't trade back-to-back year picks. At least the Houston Rockets got saved by the Brooklyn Nets already fucking this up. So yeah, but the Houston Rockets tried to do their best Brooklyn Nets impression and trade all of their picks away, but luckily in this trade, if they were able to do it, they'd be getting 2 first rounders who, although aren't going to be great first rounders, are still first round picks. And I mean, anytime you can bring in first round picks and get draft capital is huge, especially when you don't have your own picks because you have a failed blockbuster trade. And then they also get a 2020 Atlanta second round pick, which is going to be a pretty high second round pick because, I mean, it's Atlanta and they suck. So, I mean, although it is a second round pick, it's going to be a very early second round pick, which could translate into being a very solid player for your team, as there have been very good players coming out of the second round. So, I mean, they would be getting draft capital, and not only mentioned, they would also be saving around $4 to $5 million in cap space. So although they won't be saving a ton of cap space, they are saving cap space, which is extremely important as this team is in cap hell. So any way that they can save money is a beneficial way for them to do. So they save money, they get draft picks, they have a rebuild for the future, they get 2 solid players. I think Houston would benefit from this trade a lot, but I also think Philly would benefit from this trade, as now they become instant contenders, and they don't have to trade anyone out of their big 2 already that they have in Embiid and Ben Simmons. But unfortunately, guys, that's going to be the video. So if you did like the video at any point, hit the like button and subscribe button. I mean, the world to me. And also comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think James Harden could potentially get traded to the Philadelphia 76ers? I want to hear all your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you have any video ideas you want to see me make in the future, comment those below as well. Y'all been killing it. Y'all been showing tons of support on the channel, and I cannot thank y'all enough. So yeah, thank you for all that. And all glory to God. Hope you have a blessed day. Have a blessed day. So you need to have a blessed day. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.